Cam, good to have you on here, sir. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, man.
Starting way, way, way back here to the beginning. Do you remember the first sort of inkling of interest within music for you? Do you remember when that occurred?
Um, like the first, I remember like the first tape I got. Like I'm old, so there was tapes, but it was like a Chipmunks. You know the Chipmunks? It
Yeah.
was like a chipmunk. I think I got it from my grandparents, but it was like they were doing rock songs. And I was probably like 3 or 4 when I got that. And I just remember listening to that over and over again. But it was like covers of uh like B-52s and I want to say like Fleetwood Mac and stuff like that was on there, but just in like a Chipmunks version. That was probably like the first time I remember like listening to something over and over again, like singing along and like getting into it. So probably all the way back to then. But the first time I remember being like, oh, cool music, like that's like a cool thing was my sister had again a tape of Hanson, that old like Mbop, those
Bop.
guys.
Sure, sure.
And
A
then
classic. And I
yeah, and
can't
then she
remember
like got
anything else that they
there was
sang
like
at all.
a magazine, I think, as well. She got, and it was like featuring them. And I just remember there was like a picture of them like jamming and they all had their instruments and like the youngest guy was like on the drums and I was like, ooh, I want to play drums. Like that looks cool. That's like the first time I remember being like asking my parents, like, can I get a drum set? And they were like, no, hell no. And then I think it was years of that. I think I gave up on drums just because we were poor, didn't have the space for it at the time. I eventually ended up getting a guitar, which just seemed, I guess, easier. But that
Uh,
took a while. That was like sixth grade. So that was like years later that I finally got something.
Looking back on it, do you presume that your previous assumption was true, that it was in fact easier?
Um, yes and no. Like, when I first got my guitar, I didn't know how to play it or anything about it. And like I got it and I was like stoked that I got it. But then as soon as I started trying to play it, I realized like I don't even know like how to hold it. I don't know how to like make a chord. And it kind of just sat in a corner for a couple months until one of my cousins was over one time and he picked it up and he started playing Iron Man like just on one string. And I was like, whoa, what? Like show me that. And then he taught me that. And like so I learned Iron Man and like Smoke on the Water, like classic beginner stuff, but just one string. And that was like the first thing I learned. And I was like, okay, cool. I can maybe do this. And then my parents paid for lessons and I got lessons from a guy for a couple months and he just taught me basic chords and like, you know, the strings and everything and just the basics. And then I kind of from there, just from playing with other people, picked stuff up. But
And when did that start becoming incorporated into your life that you started playing with others?
um me and like my best friend growing up, he lived two doors down, Tyson Byrne. He also got a guitar at the same time as me. But we like had this plan in like the third grade where we're like, we're gonna start a band. But neither of us had instruments, but we're like, we're gonna do it. Like we're gonna be in a band one day. And eventually we did get guitars and our at the time, I guess like we devised that plan with a couple others and it was like we have a band. There was four of us and we did eventually. It took like I think that was the third grade and by the seventh grade we all actually had instruments and we're like, okay, I guess let's get together. And we jammed like Back in Black by AC/DC or something like that. And that was probably like the first jam we like learned that AC/DC song. We're like, cool, maybe we can do this.
And are to your knowledge, are these other people that you formed that band with still playing music themselves, or was it just you that made it into another
um
phase?
I think I'm the only one who probably like has taken it this far. I think they probably all play still. I know like two of them definitely play, just not in bands or anything like that. Um, But yeah, I'm the only one who kind of like really stuck with it, I suppose.
And when did you start singing? When did that kind of come into your life?
um, I kind of always was singing in like all these bands, like that one especially. Like we all kind of sang, I guess, a little bit, but like I said, when it started out, we were playing like Back in Black, but like that quickly turned into like kind of like hardcore punk, and it was like a pretty like just straight up punk band. So I wouldn't say I was singing, but we were all like yelling, and like we didn't have proper gear, so like we were singing into like our PA at the time was like a karaoke machine just in my buddy's garage, and like we all had these little like 15-watt like Marshall amps, and it sounded like shit, but like we were, yeah, basically screaming into like a karaoke microphone. And I think over the years I just got slightly better at like, oh, I don't have to like yell so much maybe.
When you began incorporating more singing in your own front, did you find that difficult as well, or was that sort of something that came more naturally than learning the guitar?
um yeah, I think it was more just like when I first started doing it, I think where I grew up too, like everyone was like, it was all punk bands, it was all metal bands. So I felt weird about like actually trying to sing. I feel like everyone's trying to like scream and like do like a punk thing there when we were like in high school. So it felt like if you were singing normally, it was like kind of lame, maybe in a sense. So like we all kind of like stayed away from it for the longest time, I think. And then it wasn't until like after high school I had a band. It was all kind of like the same. There was probably like maybe 15 of us in high school that all played music, and there was like maybe two or three bands, and they all were the same people that would just kind of go in and out of each other's bands. But so it was all these my like best friends growing up. A different version of another band started, and it was kind of the first time where I was like, let's do a band that's not like a punk band, and it was more like rock, like maybe indie rock, I guess. A little funky maybe, but and like I would say that was the first time I was like trying to actually just sing and not like yell or whatever. So that would have been like 2 years after, a year or two after high school, and then went to college and started a band there, and that was like meeting a bunch of people like in music. It was like that's probably when I started singing more and like maybe getting a little more comfortable with it, I think.
Hmm.
I think for the first little while, I was just very like, it just felt unnatural and like weird. And like, I was maybe like kind of self conscious about it.
Is that do you still feel self-conscious within music now, or is that something that you've just put behind you?
Um, Not so much. No, I think I'm kind of used to it at this point. Um, Maybe just like when you bring in a new song and I'm still trying to figure it out myself too. And then like when you go to sing it and you're like, there's times where it's like, oh, this is a little weird, but I think, yeah, you kind of just got to do it.
You just got to do it sometimes.
Got to do it. I don't know.
Yeah. And you started performing in high school, right around then.
Yeah, like there wasn't a whole lot of shows or gigs or anything going on, but like every couple of months or so, someone would put on a show at like, because we were all underage too, but it would be like a show at like the Legion, or like there was like this one, there was like a library in one of the towns. I grew up in a really small town, so there was like nothing, but there was like a library, and above the library there was a space that could be rented, and our one buddy started putting on shows there like every couple months, and it would be like there'd be like like a couple hundred people there maybe, which is like pretty good. Like looking back, like just because there was nothing to do, everyone would come out to it. But it would be like, yeah, a bunch of punk metal bands. Um,
Above a
but
library.
yeah, above a library or like above the like hockey arena, like the same thing. There was just these weird like rooms you could rent, but there wasn't like actual venues or anything like that. or at least actual venues that like underage kids could play.
Playing above a hockey arena and playing above a library, I feel like is drastically different. I mean, one fits more than the other.
Yeah,
A notoriously silent place playing above that, heavy music, and
it was cool though. There were
and
cool
then there's
shows.
the library, of course, which is obviously a very loud place. Hockey
Yeah.
arena, very, very quiet, very stoic.
Exactly. But yeah, that's probably like when I started performing, I suppose. But like I could count the gigs. Like it was, we did less than 10 shows for sure.
Split between the hockey arena and the library, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and maybe one show like out in a gazebo, like in a park or something like that. Some weird at like some weird event. I don't know, small town event.
Did you feel like there was only so far you could go within your own hometown before it was like, all right, now we're at a wall?
It was kind of like after I graduated high school, like the band I had, that was the first time we kind of were like, all right, like how do we get shows? Like it'd be cool to go on tour, but like how do you do that? Like we didn't know anything about it. And I grew up near the closest city was Ottawa, the capital of Canada. But we were probably like a half an hour drive from that. Um, and there was like some places to play there, and we got a couple gigs here and there. And like I quickly realized, like, yeah, I need to like kind of get out of here if I want to like maybe do this properly, I think.
Did you feel like once you went to college that opportunities expanded with on the front of playing music?
Yeah. So I went to college for it was music industry arts. So and it was just kind of like everything music, but like the biggest part of it was like recording. So there was like a couple studios that we got to use and like use to record songs and stuff like that. But just going into that program, I was just surrounded by musicians and music and people trying to do the same thing. So that kind of made it just made it easier because my whole and like all the teachers too were like go home and like work on your music. So it was like very music focused. Whereas living in Ottawa, I was like working a full-time landscaping job and like music was like when you go home, it's like your thing you do in your spare time. And like I'd just be tired after work as well. So it's just like I think I got like in a rut after high school, just like landscaping for 2 years and kind of was like, didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. Um, and then was finally like, I should probably just like go to college or something because I'm just kind of spinning my wheels here. But yes, going to college, met a bunch of people, met a bunch of musicians, a lot of my friends like that I'm still really close with now, and all like the whole band, Wine Lips, went to the same program. So
So it was good, I would say. From an
it was,
outside perspective, it seems like it was pretty
yeah,
decent.
yeah, for sure, 100%.
When did Wine Lips begin?
Our first show was October 2015. It was like a Halloween show, actually. So we're coming up on 9 years right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you remember how that got started from the beginning of that?
Yeah. So when I went to college, I started a band with some friends. And after we graduated in 2014. And I moved to Toronto because that's where a couple of the guys, they kind of lived around there. And we were kind of like, let's go to Toronto and we'll, try to do the band thing. And that kind of started fizzling out. And then my roommates at the time, Aurora being one of them, are the drummer of Wine Lips. We lived together, and then we had a roommate, our original bass player, Justin. We just started Wine Lips as kind of like a side project, just as like a, I don't know. We were all just kind of sitting around playing board games, and like we would go to bars and go watch bands and listen to records, and we're all just like, let's just start like a punk band. just like something for fun. Because Aurora had a band at the time. It was kind of like an indie folk band. I had my band, which was kind of like a rock, garage rock band, I guess. And both of our bands were just kind of like not doing as much as we wanted to and kind of fizzling out. And like the members kind of all lived all over the place. So we started Wine Lips as a side project. And like the first gig we did was actually a show that my old band bailed on because like the drummer couldn't make it or something. So I was like, oh, I got this other band. We'll still play the show sort of thing. And yeah, that's kind of how it all started. That was like maybe like a couple weeks after we first started jamming. We just like were throwing songs together on the spot sort of thing.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
What was that process like? Did you feel like it was different than what you were doing with the other band just entirely, or was there some similarities between your your main band and the side project that was developing?
I think there was a couple similarities just because I was doing most of the writing in the other band at the time as well. But it seemed a lot easier just because it was like, oh, let's just start this side project for fun. Like there was no pressure on it. So we were kind of just playing whatever and like whatever was coming out. And like I would be like, oh, here's a riff. And then like would just start singing whatever over top. And that's kind of how basically the first record was written, aside from maybe a couple where I was like put a little time into it. But it was a lot of just like, yeah, minute and a half, like little punk songs that were just easy to play. Um, and we just played a couple gigs like over the year, like maybe like once a month in Toronto. That was kind of the whole first year. It was all total side project, and then yeah, kind of went from there, I guess.
And where did the name come from?
The name. So again, like where I'm from, like small town. I don't know if it's something we all just kind of said in high school. Like if you're drinking like red wine all night, or like you're going to a party and you're like bringing red wine, it's like, oh, I'm getting the wine lips tonight. Just drinking a bunch of red wine and getting like that shitty, your teeth are all red and your lips are all red sort of thing.
Which is a sign of good wine. That's a good
Yeah.
it's a good indication.
Or bad. You're just drinking it to get drunk. But so Justin, our original bass player, he's also from where I'm from. And we were jamming one night. Like we went to band practice and he pulled out a bottle of red wine. I was like, oh, I'm getting the wine lips tonight. And then we went to a show after that. And I was kind of like, it just like popped in my head because we were looking for the name. And I was like, wine lips, like wine lips, that could be the band name. And he was just like, yeah, that's kind of sweet actually. And on top of that, my old band, it was just kind of a confusing name. It was one of those names where you'd say it and everyone had to ask. And it was just like, so I just wanted a name for this band that was like simple and easy.
Wine and lips. I mean that
Wine lips, it's pretty self-explanatory.
pretty cryptic, I would say. That's just me though. That's coming from an outside perspective.
Yeah.
Was there ever a discussion between the band about what kind of music Wine Lips was going to make, or I mean, was it just a really natural process of like these are just the songs that have been developed?
um I think like when we were kind of like, oh, we should just like jam, like let's just us three jam. We could start like an easy band. We were probably just listening to a lot of like punk records at the time, like the Hives and I don't know, OC or OCs and like King Gizzard and stuff like that, probably. Courtney
I mean,
Barnett, even I know we were all like,
sure. I mean, hey, come on.
but we were like, let's just like write easy punk songs. And then we'd be listening to records like, yeah, we could do something like this. Like, let's do something similar to this. But like, we didn't go in being like, let's rip the band off or anything. It was just kind of like, basically just would start with a riff or someone would start playing something and just go from that. And me just start yelling, whatever, and try to string like a melody together and then like put words to that. Or, yeah, there was not a whole lot of thought that went into it at the start for sure.
Speaking of the Hives, they're fucking so good.
Yeah,
Uh,
we actually just saw them a couple nights ago. We toured with this band, our buddies Bad Nerves. They're fucking great. And They're doing a bunch of shows with the Hives right now, opening up.
Oh,
So they got us in. They guest listed us. We went and hung out. But it was my first time seeing the Hives. They're like one of my favorite bands for sure, and I'd never seen them before, so I was sick.
yeah, that is awesome. I've heard that. I mean, they really prop up kind of smaller acts, which is so awesome.
Yeah.
I know that Wine Lips doesn't like to do that, and I understand. You're like, no, 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 we're too big time for everybody. Which I understand. You don't guest list people, and
Yeah.
I understand. Yeah,
You can pay.
please come. You throw it on them like you're not going to support a local band.
We're like, this the money goes to us, right? We need to pay our bills.
I mean, everybody supported Hanson, and
Yeah. Look at them now.
fucking billionaires,
I
all
think they're
three
still
of them.
going, right? They're probably still playing.
I bet that they are, but I feel like a lot of people aren't paying attention to it.
Hell
Um,
no.
Hanson the Hives tour, I think that'd be good. I'd like to see that.
That'd be that'd be interesting.
I think it wouldn't clash at all. I think that they're on the same trajectory.
Especially if the Hives played first.
Sure, absolutely. As a lead-in, yeah.
Yeah.
Which
Just to
I'm
set the tone.
not trying to pull rank, but I mean the Hive's kind of smaller than Hanson. It's just popularity.
It's all a popularity contest these days.
That's music.
There was this thing, I don't know who started it, but when I was in college, the program we had, they started like it was called like the program I was in was called MIA, like Music Industry Arts. So they started an MIA Billboard, like top 10. And it was like the bands that would start in there. And I forget the ranking, but it was like how many followers you had, all this stupid shit. But there would be a weekly like top 10 bands. And there was one time, it was always the same bands that were in the top spot, obviously. But I remember there was like one time someone was like, it's all just a popularity contest. This is stupid. Yeah, harsh reality for the industry we're getting into. So get used to it, I guess.
Sorry, bud. It's just it's just what it is.
Not everyone's going to like your shit.
So the Hives, DOCs, King Gizzard, these are all great bands and such that are propelling you at that time. When did these newer acts, if you will, kind of start to enter your purview of what you were into? Was that kind of early on, even before college, that you started listening to these newer bands? I mean, outside of AC/DC, of course, being a
Yeah.
very new band.
No, it was probably during like because I used to listen to a lot of like older punk, like Minor Threat, like Dead Kennedys, Misfits, all that kind of shit, like growing up, Descendants, No Effects. That was kind of like what I grew up on. Um, and then I kind of got more into like, the indie rock in the middle. I think I took a little punk break for a minute and
Okay.
then got bored of that stuff pretty quick and just went back to the punk. But I remember in college we had this one uh project in like our production class, and it was like find a song from like an unknown band and like reproduce it and like tell us what you would do. So I was just kind of like going through Bandcamp, like new releases, and I found King Gizzard, and it was like I think it was their first record at the time. But that's how I discovered them, was just like searching new releases on Bandcamp. I was like, oh, this sounds like kind of cool. And it was like the first time I was like, because it was kind of like punky, but like garage as well. Like, it was like kind of like the more garagey stuff I got into. So that was like my introduction to that kind of stuff. And like continued like listen to that record quite a bit. That first I think it was their first proper record. But like through that, obviously like found OCs and all those other bands that come along with them. But and then we saw King Gizzard like a year later. I saw them in Toronto and they played like a bar that was like 100 capacity. Like there was us and like there was maybe 50 people there. And now they're like one of the biggest bands in that genre. I find it a little hard to keep up with them because they put out too much music. I don't know like their last probably 10 records or whatever, but
I think
still
they
respect.
do at least 70. in that room now, for sure.
At least maybe
At
75. I
oh
would
wait,
put on like YouTube,
oh
a
yeah.
record on YouTube, and then it was just like what would come on after, and that's like so basically like put on a Gizzard record, and then like OCs would probably come on, and then like I think Fuzz might have been one of them too, because I remember it came on and I was like listening to it and I was like, oh, this is like kind of like Black Sabbath, and like the record cover looked super old too, and I was like, who is this band? Like from the 70s, like it looked super old and sounded super old, and then I like kind of looked into it a bit and I was like, oh, this is like a newer band. Cool. It's just a newer band doing this old sound, and now everyone's doing that, obviously, but yeah, all those bands kind of came from like the King Gizzard algorithm, I guess, on YouTube for me.
So it was Bandcamp and YouTube primarily that was
Started
pushing
with
it.
Bandcamp, but then YouTube. YouTube was better at finding other ones because yeah, I would just play videos after, and I was like, oh, who's this? This is cool. Oh, who's this? This is cool. And now it's the same thing with Spotify, like just stuff coming on in the algorithm.
Have you jumped ship from YouTube since then, and now are you on Spotify mainly for
I
your listening pleasure?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I'll put on Spotify and it's good, but now I find I don't know who I'm listening to ever because it's always just playlists. And then if I like really hear something that's like catching my ear, I'll go over and like save it and like look at it. But like there's so many times where I'm talking to people and they're like, "Oh, do you know this band? Like, have you heard of this band?" I'm like, "No, I don't think so." And then they'll like play it and it's like, "Oh, I have heard this actually." So it's Spotify is good in that sense, but bad because I don't know any names of bands now or like names of songs or like shit like that.
Not important to ever know that that information. It when it comes across your desk, it comes across your desk, and you say, "I like that," and I'll hear it again if I hear it again.
Yeah, if it's meant to be, I'll hear it again.
Sure. That's the way you got to play the game with this music industry now, which
Yeah,
is
exactly.
again that was covered in your courses at college, I presume.
Oh yeah, they covered everything, all things music industry.
Right, right. Very in depth. Um, so when Wine Lips began, it that this is in Toronto, right?
Yeah.
Very nice. Now, the scene, if you will, or the music that was coming out of that area at the time, was there anything that was kind of similar to what you guys were doing, or not so much?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. The scene we kind of started in Toronto, I would say it was pretty heavy on this like the psych. There was a lot of bands like really trying the psych thing. So maybe we were a little more on the punky side of that, but we always kind of had that like little tinge of psych going on, I guess. But there would be bands that were doing like a lot of the slower, like long ass jams, like 10-minute psychedelic jams and stuff like that, which was cool.
And
But
not
it
long.
was a
It's
lot
not
of that.
long enough. You know, it's not. It's we
Yeah,
need more
20 minutes at least.
at least.
But yeah, it was a lot of like I would say like the garagey, psyche, punky kind of stuff. That was the scene we were in. And there was like a lot of great bands. I think a lot of them kind of died out, the ones that we were playing with, but there's a couple that are still going and touring. Like there's a band called Hot Garbage. I know they're like probably touring the most out of a lot of the bands we played with in the beginning, I would say. There's a band called like Bad Waitress. They're a little more not psychedelic, but on the punkier side, I'd say.
Very nice. This is 2015-ish is when we're talking about the inception of this, or 2013.
15 would have
Fif-
been when it like first started, like end of 15, like 2016 would have been kind of the meeting more bands in Toronto and playing a couple shows and stuff like that.
Was there a point that you felt that Wine Lips was like, oh, we're kind of getting some traction here. There's some substance to this.
Yeah, I think probably in that first year, like I said, we only did a couple shows in Toronto. Um, but early on, like we would do like a headline show. There's this place in Toronto called the Bovine Sex Club. and it was like a cool punk bar. It's still there. It's still a cool punk bar. But we the booker knew us just from our other bands, and he kind of let us like, do our own thing. And like really early on, we just like booked a show and like got some friends to open, and like it was like packed. And it was just like, for my old band to play there, it'd be like really good to do that. And we were already doing that like kind of right away. And I think that's when we are like, oh, this is like, this could work. And people like seemed to really be into the songs and stuff like that, and crazy mosh pits. So that, I think that was kind of like, yeah, well, like maybe we could just do this band. Or at least that's the way I was kind of leaning, because I was like, this is just like a little more fun for me, I think.
When did it start becoming the main band and not the side project?
I think 2017, I want to say, was, I think I played my last show with my old band at the Bovine, and I remember just being like, there wasn't a whole lot of people there. My band didn't seem to fucking want to be there, and I just remember like halfway through the show being like, it sounds like shit. And I was like, I'm fucking over this, and like kind of made up my mind while we were playing. I was like, I think I'm over this band, and just
Halfway through.
we never like made an announcement or like officially broke up. We just kind of stopped. We just didn't really say anything.
That's the
And
way
I
to
was
do
like,
it.
I'm just gonna do Wine Lips. I'm just gonna focus on that.
When you made that decision to quit your other band and focus on Wine Lips, did that kind of open up different doors for you in terms of creativity or just kind of time management with this? You're like, yeah, I could really let's do this full fledged.
Yeah, because like essentially me and Aurora just wanted to tour. And that was kind of the problem with our old bands, is like everyone had jobs, and we would do small little tours and weekend things, but we wanted to like actually go on tour. And so we were both down, and then we found someone else. After Justin left, we got a new roommate who I worked with in Toronto at a guitar store, and he just took over on bass. And he was down too, so we kind of just like booked like our first tour we did was like out east Canada, like out to Halifax, and it was like a 2 week thing. I think maybe played like 14 shows, and that was sweet. And he was down, and like kind of just kept going from there. Like after that first tour, we're like, sweet, let's just keep doing this. And it's not like the shows were amazing. They were never terrible, but there was definitely a couple shows where playing to like not a lot of people for sure.
How did you feel during that embarking on that journey of the first tour?
It was just fun. It was just fun for us at the time, because we just wanted to play and travel around and just like go to new places. So like obviously we wanted the shows to be sweet, but like if they weren't, we were still enjoying ourselves, because it was like, oh, we're in this new town or this new city we've never been to, meeting new people, like just sleeping on people's floors, like meeting random people and sleeping on their floors and stuff like that. So it was pretty exciting in those days. And like we were younger and like had a ton of energy, so we were like cool doing that. What we realized over time, and like now that our tours are longer and more grueling, is we do need to sleep, which maybe we didn't need to do so much in the early days, but now that we're a bit older, we don't function as well without proper sleep.
So proper sleep in real beds. That's
Real beds if possible. um
preferably real beds.
if not, a couch will do.
Do you remember the last time that you took a couch to sleep on? Is this within a recent memory, or has that been a long distant kind of a thing?
I mean, we've definitely got Airbnbs or something where it's like, oh, someone's got to take this couch. So probably then, definitely within the last couple of years, I would say, yeah, within the last year, I definitely slept on a couch. It was a really nice couch though, the one I'm thinking of. It might as well have been a bed. I mean, when we the first like, I want to say the first like 7 years was like couches and floors, and like we slept in some scary spots.
What
And
was is there a spot that is sticking out to you in memory that you're like, that was not so great?
there was a couple, like the first time we went to Europe, there was like a couple, like I guess there were like hostels, but I remember one, the venue put us up in, it was basically above this, it was this like DIY venue, but they were like, oh, we'll take you up to the room. And they opened the door and there's just like a dude in there passed out sleeping. And they're like, oh, okay, we'll come back. And then like it just like stunk and it was like wet and it just was like musty. And we're like, what the fuck, man? And I like slept fully clothed that night because I was like, I feel like I'm gonna get like eaten alive by bed bugs or something. So that's probably, there was a lot of that kind of stuff. Just a lot of like people that would be like, yeah, you can come sleep at my place. Like I got a couch. And then you'd show up and it was like an armchair. So it was like armchair and sleeping on the hardwood floor. But that was fine because we couldn't afford hotels or anything. So we're like, whatever. Like as long as we don't have to sleep in the car, we're happy. There was a lot of that though for the first 5 to 7 years, I'd say.
But not anymore.
It's only recently that we're like, let's get some hotels. Let's treat ourselves a little more.
To a bed,
To a
one
bit.
bed. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
really stepping it up.
It's all about getting that proper sleep, you know?
Yep. I hey, 12 hours I hear now is the
12?
op. Yeah, 12.
Damn, I'm never getting that.
12 to 14 hours of sleep a night.
That's uh that's more than half the day.
12 to
Half the
20
hours in the
hours. Yep.
day.
I've seen your guys' music described as like psych and garage and punk, kind of the things that we were discussing earlier. Um, were these terms that you were using to describe the band when people would ask what kind of music you guys made, or were you using something else to describe it?
um Probably, but like I feel like for the longest time I was just like, oh, we're like a rock and roll band. I would just say that, but then like no one ever knows. Like, and you tell people, like especially people that are like, oh, like, yeah, what type of, oh, you're in a band, like what type of music do you play? And it's like, oh, we're like a rock and roll band. And they'd be like, oh, cool, like AC/DC. And be like, not really. So I guess maybe we were like, yeah, it's more like punk, more maybe psych. I don't know. I just try to like, for people that don't know too, it's like, it's just like a punk rock band.
So during this first tour, uh, going back to that, was and please correct me if I'm wrong, was the first release out at this time, and was it the self-titled EP? Was that kind of the first thing that was thrown out to the public?
The first, the EP was definitely out. I think our first record was out. I'm pretty sure that's why we were like, oh, let's put this record out and just do a little tour to push it. But yeah, we just made like 100 CDs, I think.
No
Uh,
tapes, CDs this time.
we did do some tapes actually early on that we made ourselves, like because we had one of those CD players where you could put a tape in and record it to the tape. So we just made our own tapes. I think we made like 20 of them. And those were like popular in Toronto. Like all bands were doing tapes. And I always thought it was kind of dumb, but I just don't have a tape player myself. So I do get it, but I was just like, I would never buy them. But every time we'd make them, they'd sell like right away. So I don't know, maybe we should have made more of them. But it was CDs for the most part, just because they were cheap as fuck to make.
Hey,
But
but
to
yeah,
go back to your question, it was the first record we were touring, like on that first that little tour we did. We
very
would have
nice.
first record out, yeah.
And outside of Toronto, was it kind of was the reactions kind of the same? Were you guys kind of getting like a good reaction from the crowd and the audience that would show up to these gigs?
Yeah. And like me and Aurora were booking the shows ourselves back then, but like from our old bands, we were doing that with those bands. So we kind of built up a good list of like contacts. So we kind of knew like we had a head start there where we knew like some cool places to play that would like just be good on certain days of the week and stuff like that. The first time we went all the way out east, we had a couple, but it was like still a bit of a gamble on whether or not it would be good. But I would say most of the shows were like pretty good. Um, and like one probably the worst show we played on that first tour, which wasn't even bad, but it was just like kind of a midday record store thing in Quebec City. But then even from that, there was a guy there who like booked us in China from that show. So a show that we were kind of like, that was like whatever. There was a dude there that was like, you guys want to tour in China? Like, I'll book you in China. And we're like, okay, sure. Why not? So we ended up going to China for a week in 2018 because of that record store show.
Wow. So I mean, and that there was a bit of time between that record, the record store show and the show in China.
Yeah, because well, and he was kind of talking to us that night about it, and we were kind of like, oh, this guy's full of shit. Like, who is this guy? But then, like, sure enough, we like emailed him, followed it up, and he was like, yep, like, here's what I can do. And we're like, oh, wow, like, he can actually do this. This seems like kind of legit. And that was our first time touring outside of Canada, was going to China.
Look, there's natural steps for touring musicians. Go a little bit east, go to China, maybe do the States.
Yeah, if you want. If you
Is
want to pay for the visas, go do the States.
is it even worth it? Is it even we're big in China. Why are we gonna come to the States? It makes no sense. We're skipping the States.
Yeah. A lot of bands starting out will kind of ask us to like, oh, how do you guys go to the States? Like, what do you have to do to go to the States? And it is like, you got to get these visas, and it's a huge pain in the ass. Like, and I'm just like, if you can figure out how to go to Europe, do that because it's probably going to be better than going to the States for the first time.
And what about China? How was that? How was the gig out there? Or gigs? How many did you do?
It was short. Like, we were only there for a week, I think. I think we only played 5 shows, but it was basically like we didn't lose any money. We didn't make any money. I think it was just like broke even. It was a good excuse to go to China. It was like a paid vacation essentially. But the shows were weird, I would say, because it was the places we were playing were like Irish pubs owned by like Canadian and US expats. And then like a lot of the shows over there too, I think live music was kind of like fairly new. Like I don't like within the last 10 years, I don't think it was like a typical thing to like go out and see a band maybe, but like it was like tables all the way up to the stage. So everyone was sitting down and they'd be like dancing in their seats maybe. And then like quietly like applauding after. And it was like very like tame. It was a strange, like not what we were used to at all. So it was very strange. But we're like, whatever, we're in China. They're putting us up in nice hotels. This is cool.
I would have really liked it if you guys really became accustomed to that. You're like, yes, this is amazing. Then you go back to Canada, play a show, and it's just rowdy, and you go, this is not what we're used to
Yeah.
anymore.
Can you
We
guys
don't
all sit down?
sit down, dance in your seats, clap when the song is over. Just be polite.
Yeah, and it would be like just like that and nothing else. It was very strange.
I kind of like it. I kind of like that. That's the response.
But
Very
and at
nice.
first too, we were kind of like we'd be playing and like some of those shows too, they were like do 2 sets sort of thing. So we'd had like 2 45-minute sets. And like for the first set, we'd be like, this is fucking weird. Like these people don't want to be watching us. But then in the little break, like people would be coming up and being like, you guys are so good. Oh my God, this is awesome. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, I guess. And then so you'd have a little more confidence for the second set. But it was just strange vibes for sure.
That's cool
Not
though.
just not what we're used to, but looking back, it's pretty hilarious because of the type of music we're doing and the just the shows we were playing. It was just like such a weird fit, but it's funny to look back on for
I think
sure.
I think
Would
that
I do it again? I don't know. But I'm glad we did it.
so going back to the first tour, you did this was also a week, you said, or 2 weeks going east.
Um, I think it was like 2 weeks. Yeah.
Wow. And when you came back, what was your take on the experience overall? Were you like, yeah, I want to do that some more? Like there's something to this even outside of our community that we're doing it in.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I think it was exactly that. Like as soon as we got back, it was like, all right, let's like start planning the next one because that was sweet. And yeah, just like going to a city that you're not from and having people into the music and like wanting to buy your shirt, wanting to buy your music was like it's just like a good like cool feeling where it was like, oh yeah, maybe we are onto something here. I don't know. Because it's people outside of people you know. It's just total strangers at that point too.
Like I don't know anybody here. Just all everybody's strangers in the
Yeah,
crowd
exactly.
at least.
Yeah,
Maybe
exactly.
I think that you did know the people that you were playing with though, right? In the band. I think that you guys have met before, maybe once or twice, but besides those
Once or
people,
twice. Yeah.
yeah, kind of just new relationships, which is also fun.
We were working on it. Yeah.
Yeah, feeling each other out, seeing
Seeing
what's
if
going on.
seeing if we liked each other.
Trial run.
Yeah, exactly.
And so again, the self-titled EP, and was it also the self-titled LP? Were those the two first releases that we're referring to at this point that were out that you were playing songs off from?
Yeah. So what happened was we put out an EP, and then about a year later, I want to say probably a year later, we just wrote like six more songs, or we had the songs, we just recorded six more songs, and we just took the first EP and the new six songs, and we just slapped them together, and we're like, cool, there's the first record. It was basically two EPs that just became a record.
I think that could be said about a lot of albums. So,
Yeah.
not I wouldn't say just.
Yeah. Well, and especially now, like the way everything's released, like with singles, like so far in advance, it's like bands are putting out pretty much their whole record before the record's dropped. They've already dropped like eight of the songs off the record, which is crazy.
But is that kind of good in the way that when the record finally comes out and you go, "Oh, I love that song. I love that song. I love that song."
I think it is, and it's probably good for the streams because you're like building your streams up before the record's out. And like getting traction towards it. But maybe the only thing that sucks about it is by the time the record does come out and you know all the songs already, it's like, oh, it's like, where's all the new stuff? I wanted to hear some new stuff. So maybe it's like, oh, the record's out, but I've already heard the whole thing aside from a couple songs. So maybe it's we do it a little differently where we only do a couple singles, and that's mainly the way our label likes to do it. But that's cool too, because then it's like the whole album is like a bit of a mystery until it's out as well.
With those first two releases, the self-titles, or the self-titled EP, self-titled LP, was that a huge kind of point for you guys as well? That like, oh, all right, we're moving with this thing. Like we got some stuff out, and there's like recorded versions of these songs that we've been playing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, because we did those records or that first record, we did it ourselves in the basement where we lived. We just recorded it ourselves and we got our friend to mix it. So it was fairly easy to do and like super cheap. Like it probably only cost us like a couple $100 total. Um, but and then compared to our old bands too, it seemed like it was always like such a process to get like stuff out. And like Aurora's old band didn't even do like a full length. They had a couple EPs. I think my old band had like a couple EPs and a record. So it was like always like, oh, to get a record out, and we just kind of did a record pretty quick. And I was like, yeah, why don't we just like, why is everyone doing EPs? Like, let's just do records. That's way better. It's like if you can write 5 songs for an EP, why not just write 5 more and put out a full length?
How long had those songs been in rotation before you guys finally recorded them?
Like pretty quick because I think that first EP came out like not too long after we started playing shows. Because I think as soon as we started playing shows, we're like, well, we need something online to like so people can listen or like to get more shows. Like, here's our band, can you book us, sort of thing. So I'm pretty sure the first EP, which was probably 4 songs, I think that came out after like a couple months. And again, just it was so quick because we recorded it ourselves, and the songs were easy. They were just like quick little punk things. But and then like 6 months later, we probably did the others and slapped the whole record together, which came out after like a year basically of being a band, I think.
Wow. Did you feel like those two first two releases kind of really pinpointed what the band was doing? Like this is the sound, and it's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, I think so. For the most part, yeah. Because it hasn't really, I don't think it's strayed too much from where we started. We maybe just like refined it a little more and like uh tuned in on like what tones we like and what we don't like, I guess.
So this is kind of 2 years after starting the band is when both the these two self-titled's are out roughly.
Yeah, honestly, probably not even 2 years, I think.
Wow.
Like a year and a half. April 12th, 2016, that EP came out.
Wow.
And then May 23rd, 2017. So like just over a year later, we did the full record, which really isn't that much. That's basically like an EP each year. We just included the first EP with it.
But still though, I mean like getting two things out that quickly after just even the band beginning is very impressive.
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. And like, yeah, I guess it's not like we had like up to our first jam, it's not like we had anything written. We just started with that first jam.
And then after the self-titled LP, it was Stressor, right? Is that the
Yep.
was that the following one? And did you begin working on that like right after?
Yeah, like we were just continuously like back then too, we were like jamming once or twice a week. And then I was just working at a bar and I would get home late and I would just go home and sit on the couch after and just play guitar until like 4 or 5 in the morning. So I just had like a ton of like voice memos in my phone of just like riffs and stuff like that. So back then, basically every time we would jam, it was like a new song was coming out, at least like one or two. So we were writing pretty quick back then.
Is that how it is now as well, or has it changed?
It's changed because like I don't live in Toronto anymore, and the band it's kind of become it's more just me and Aurora. Just there's been so many member changes that we kind of just we have like the other two guys that are with us. They're more like hired for touring essentially. So we don't really like get together and write and jam and stuff like that. I kind of we kind of did it on the last record where a lot of it was just me. That was probably a lot of COVID as well, but like just because we were all separated. But I was like writing on my own and demoing on my laptop and like sending it to Aurora, and then maybe we'd get together and just me and her would kind of like work stuff out. But so it's kind of more like that now, where I'm doing more of the writing and like sending it to her.
Has it has it kind of always been a somewhat of a solo endeavor that writing music for Wine Lips? Just kind of working on it by yourself and with others and Aurora obviously, but
Hmm.
has working by yourself really been a cornerstone of this looking back on it?
Yeah, because And I think that's probably kind of how it started too, was because my old band, it was like everyone's kind of contributing and having their own ideas. So it's like everyone's kind of got their say. Whereas for this, I was just like, I just want to write, like, I just want to put out the music that I want to fucking hear. And like, I don't want to have to be like, oh, I don't like what you're playing. Can we change that? Like, I can just do that now. Like, I would basically write these songs. Like, I'd get home and I'd write them on my own, and then I'd bring them to the band. And a lot of the times, the songs were finished, and if not finished, it was like half finished, where I'd just like jam it with them and kind of, for me, just like hearing it with a band, at least I could be like, okay, and now I know like how to finish it, and like go home and like write a bridge, or I don't know, just see, like, you could just tell like what the song would need, I guess, just from hearing it with some drums to it. Or sometimes I would change kind of like the whole vibe completely of what I was thinking, and was like, oh, okay, maybe I'll go a totally different direction with this sort of thing. So it all kind of depended, but it would all start for sure with just me writing basically on my own in my apartment.
Much like now, or a little bit different?
Now it's that too. Like, yeah, I'm just sitting down with a guitar and seeing what happens, see what comes out.
Just kind of seeing it.
Yeah,
I
a lot
like
of
it.
a lot of voice memos still on the phone.
Yeah, that seems like a tool that a lot of people are using, um,
Yeah.
which is great. I mean that you're not losing an idea.
Yeah, and a lot of time too, I'll just like forget it's even there. So I'll go through voice memos, and then it'll be a couple months worth of stuff, and it's like, oh shit, yeah, like that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. That's kind of shitty. And you can just pick from them and kind of go from there.
Uh, do you do you tend to? I mean, we'll use voice memos for an example. An example of this. Do you ever pick up an idea like from a voice memo and go, all right, let me try to find what this is and start hashing stuff out on this, and then it turns out to be like, yeah, there's something here, but I just can't see it, and then you'll kind of shelve it. Does that ever happen for you, or is it kind of just like,
Yeah,
let me
yeah.
work on this until it's smooth?
No, all the time. That happens quite a bit, I think. Like Eyes, our song Eyes, which is like our most streamed song. I think I had that riff, like that main riff, for, I want to say, like at least 2 years. And I remember like I remember playing it like in the start, like in my old apartment, and just being like, oh, that's like kind of a cool riff, but like I don't know what to do with it, or like where to go with it. And then like I remember even jamming it with Aurora, and then like same thing, just like kind of being like, ah, whatever, we'll come back to that. And just never did. And then I don't know, I think it was for that record, like we were writing, and I was like, oh, just like I'll just make it like a quick song. Maybe back then too, I was trying to write songs that were over 2 minutes. But then I think I just realized like, not, they don't have to be over 2 minutes. Like if it's a minute and a half and that's the song, that's fine. That's the song. So I think it was just like one day, just like seeing it maybe a little more clearly, and just like, or just accepting like, oh, this is what it is, and that's fine, I guess.
Is the process of bouncing ideas off of Aurora, for instance, and I'm assuming that that's the person that you're working with most, especially now.
Yep.
Um, is that process, does that propel you or propel the song to go in a different direction?
Yeah, like, because a lot of the time too, when I'm writing, I can like, I'm like picturing, what the drums are going to be doing. And so I'll just go in and play a riff usually, and just see what she's going to do. And a lot of the times it's like, okay, yeah, that's exactly like where it would have gone. And sometimes it's like, oh, try this actually. Like, this is kind of what I was thinking. And then odd times too, it's something else that she will do that is totally different. It's like, oh, okay, maybe that does work. And I didn't think of that, or wouldn't have taken it that direction. But I think just hearing it with it too, it's like, okay, cool. Like I usually get the idea of like, all right, this song will work or not, or like, should I pursue finishing this or not, like kind of thing, I guess. But then there's a lot of the times too where I'll do that and it's like, this doesn't feel right, and like shelf it. But then like I've come back to a lot of those songs and have finished them off. So
Is it does it tend to change shape?
like yeah, for certain songs, yes. Other songs, maybe not. Sometimes I have a song and it just comes out and it's like what I have in my head comes out and that's the song and it's finished. Like written and all that shit really quick and it works. And other times it takes like a long time, like you said, and like shelving ideas and stuff. And yeah, odd times I'll have a song and like I'll be like, oh, this is like gonna be like this type of a song. And then in the end, it's like this is completely different sort of thing. So it will like they do like morph into other things certain times. Or like you'll just like I don't like change a part where it's like, oh, I like the song, but there's something about it I don't like. And then that'll happen quite a bit. And I'll sit on those songs. And then I find if I just go back and like maybe change like the chorus completely to like I don't know if it's like a minor thing, maybe make it more of a major thing or whatever, or just change the chords or whatever. And it will just kind of change the vibe of the whole song like quite a bit, maybe. And then
Yeah,
it's like, okay, cool, here's a fresh idea. And then you can run off that and it makes it all the inspiration and creativity kind of comes flowing back.
is the process of writing a song, is that more of an easier thing for you to accomplish, rather than maybe kind of playing it live or recording it or getting it done on the back end of things?
Um, I'd say it can be easy sometimes. Sometimes I feel like I have to force it a little more, which I try not to do. I think it all depends. It just depends on where I'm at, creative, like creatively and all that. But sometimes, like I said, sometimes you can just sit down and like write a song front to back and be like, oh, cool, like lyrics and everything. And then other times it just takes months or years to like finish something. But I don't know. Yes, yes, and no.
Are you always starting with the the composition first, with like guitar, or do lyrics sometimes come first and then you're building a song structure around that, or is it a bit of both?
Um, Mostly guitar. Usually I'll start with a riff or something like that. Um, the odd time I'll be out and like something will like pop into my head or like a phrasing or something, and I will like write it down. And I have like written lyrics before, but I find it harder to like write lyrics and then like try to come up with music for it. I find it has happened, but it's a little I find that a little more difficult to do. I don't know. I find it easier just to like play a riff that's like kind of gets you going and then just like come up with a melody from there and take it from there.
And you don't like doing the easy side of that, right? You go, let me do it the most difficult way possible
Oh yeah,
and
always.
force it out, as you said that you like to do earlier.
Yeah, force it, make it unlistenable.
Force creativity. Hmm.
Yeah. Forced creativity. I think for me sometimes too, like I'll go through periods where it's like, like I know I just won't write anything for months. But then if you do just get into a thing where it's like, oh, I'm just gonna wake up and like try to write something every day, eventually it's like you will write something good. And it's like, okay, yeah, maybe there is something to this.
Is
You
it
gotta
a
write a bunch of crap to get to like something good.
sure? Is it important to take uh, an extended step away from music and not try to do anything, and then to come back to it? after however long. I mean, a week or so, or maybe longer.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't mind doing that. I don't know if that'd be the same for everyone else, but
No, just can you speak for everyone just for 1 second, Cam?
for everyone,
For
yeah.
everyone.
Yeah, stop writing music altogether.
I knew it. I knew it.
There's enough music out there.
Look,
We don't need
Spotify's
any more, man.
look, Bandcamp, its new releases are through the roof. I mean, yeah, just take a
It's
break.
all becoming a bit much. I only have so many dollars I can spend on Bandcamp Fridays.
Yeah, and when the Friday that this comes out, it might be a Bandcamp Friday, so please only spend your money on Wine Lips music on Bandcamp, please.
Yeah, I've got mouths to feed.
When Stressor finally came out, was that another big kind of step for the band, did you feel, or was that kind of more of the same of the first LP?
At the time, it definitely seemed like a step up sort of thing. Um, Mainly because we actually like went into a studio um and worked with our buddy Simon, who's actually he's done the last three records now, but that was our first time working with him. And he was just like good to have to like bounce ideas off of and like co-produce with. And he's just had a ton of gear as well, which like the first record, was just we were using our own stuff in the basement. But he had like walls of guitars and like tons of amps and like different options of things and weird little synths and keyboards and stuff like that. So it was like cool to mess around with all that kind of stuff and like do it in a studio with someone recording it. And he's very good at just being like, oh, like try it again. Maybe just try it again. Not being like that sucked, but it's just like, let's just try it again. Maybe you could do it better. Or like total opposite where like doing guitar solos and stuff where I'd be like, oh, like I think I can do that better. And you'd be like, no, that was actually like pretty cool one. And then like listen back and like I would think it was like full of mistakes. And then like listening back was like, oh yeah, like that mistake was actually pretty cool. Like
That's the
so
way to
it was
communicate.
good to have someone like that to be like the outside voice, being like guiding it in a sense, I guess.
Definitely. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could communicate like that. Like maybe that's enough. Maybe that's yeah.
I think you got it. Turn down the suck.
You go, oh shit, it was on. My apologies. That's I it kind of slipped my mind. Uh, was there a specific song that from the Stressor release that stuck out to you?
I think like the main single Electric Lady on that record was it was always like a fun one to play and like seemed like it seemed to get the crowd kind of jumping around a little and singing along. And it was like the first song too, like that like got picked up by like a TV show or something like that for
Oh,
us, which was like another, I guess, stepping stone for us of like accomplishments or whatever.
definitely.
But
Do you remember the show?
that one was probably on a few, but like the main one, like the big one was like a Netflix show. I think it was called Lucifer. Lucifer? I don't actually, I never watched the show. I did have a ton of friends that were watching that show, I guess, and like would get texts and be like, yo, I just heard your song on Lucifer. I was like, yeah, cool. Because it was like those things too are so far in advance, like where it's like, hey, they want to use your song. And then it's like 6 months of like, I don't know, negotiating, I guess, or whatever, like between our PR people. And then eventually it's like, cool, it's been accepted. And then like a year later, it's out. And it's like, oh shit, like that was like 2 years ago. So when people are like texting me, I was like, oh yeah, cool, like that's out, nice.
You'll wait until Avatar 3. It's
Yeah.
just yeah. Uh, yeah. Have you ever watched something and you're like, oh, that's I know that song. That's from a such and such band.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not like, and I don't mean like Steely Dan or anything like that. I mean like a band that you know
Yes. Yeah.
personally.
No, yeah, it's happened a couple times where watching a show and it's like, oh nice. I fucking this that band got that song on there. That's sick.
That band got that song in there, and I can't have my. That's always what the fuck.
Oh, we've been pretty lucky with like we signed like a publishing deal with a label, and they've got us like quite a few things, so we're pretty lucky in that sense.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool.
Mhm.
Does there tend to always be a specific song that kind of sticks out from a release for whatever reason? Maybe it's licensed for a song or for a show or a movie or something like that.
Um, yeah, yeah, I guess so. I mean, for me too, there's always like a song that I'm like, oh, this is like the banger on the record or whatever, I guess. But it's always interesting too now, like now that we're on a label and stuff, like when you send the songs to the label, they have their opinions on like what the singles should be. And a lot of the times it's like, yeah, okay, that's what I thought too. But every once in a while it's like, oh, really? Like that's the single that you want? Like that's interesting. Weird.
That is a common theme, it seems, with people.
Mhm.
You're like, I mean, it's a obviously it's a good song, or else you wouldn't be making it, or it wouldn't see the light of day. However,
Yeah.
there's always one that you think this is gonna be it, and people are like, not that one, dickhead.
Yeah.
Two songs after that, that's the one.
Yeah. They're like, are you sure? Like, what about this one? It's like, oh, really? Like, but I really like this one.
And they go, eh, do the other one.
It's like, maybe.
And they go, do it, do the one from the Netflix show.
Yeah. There's at least one person out there. There's this girl, she's been to like two of our shows kind of near, I think it's near like Philadelphia in that area, but she's come to two shows in two different cities and both times came up after and was like, you didn't play Electric Lady. What the fuck? It's like, oh shit. I'm like, yeah, we haven't played that one in a long time.
And
Sorry.
you encourage that sort of criticism from people after shows, right?
I
Songs that
mean,
you
I
didn't
guess,
play.
yeah, I mean, and I guess that's a good sign in a sense where it's like, I guess we didn't get to all our good songs. We didn't have enough time.
Also, I'm just gonna it's on a please don't do that. Don't be.
Yeah, don't come up on stage. That is funny too. I find that now too. Like a lot of people are like, "Oh, like why didn't you play this?" And like, "Why didn't you play that?" It's like, man, we only can play so much. Sorry, we're not playing 2 hour sets. Fuck that. You got to give them a reason to want to come back the next time.
Always
So
leave them.
you got to hold out on some stuff.
They gotta want more. That's just what it is.
That's it, man.
Uh, did Mushroom Death Sex Bummer Party come out after Stressor? Was that the one that followed that?
Yeah.
When did the name come into play for the album? Was it after it was recorded or during it or
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was. I think it was probably like 2 weeks before we had to like finalize everything with the label. It was kind of like they had the record, they had the art, or they wouldn't have had the art, but or that's what it was. It was like 2 weeks before like trying to finalize like getting the artwork done. And it was kind of a like, all right, I need a fucking title for this album. So it was like pretty last minute. Pushed it as long as I could. I was doing that whole thing where I was like, it's gonna come to me, it's gonna come to me. And it never did. So I had to force something out. And that's what I came up
and it
with.
worked out. It worked out well.
Yeah.
Was there any pushback about the name? Or were they like perfect? That's what we are thinking it was going to be called.
I think, well, like, so when we sent it to the label, I'm trying to think now. Yeah, I think when they got it all, like when they got the title, they were like, "That's awesome." But I think I want to say Aurora was kind of like, Really? Like that's the title? Like I don't think she was super stoked on it at first.
And now?
Now she likes it, but
Okay.
I think at the time she was like, "What? Like what is this?" Or probably just laughed about it. But I was like, it'll work. Trust me. Trust me, it's good.
Look. I know what I'm doing here.
Yeah,
I
but
took
it
I
did
took a
work.
course on this in college. Trust me.
It seems to have worked because like a lot of people will be like, I just like saw the album title and was like, oh, I have to listen to that. I need to see what that's all about. So it's like worked in that sense where it's intrigued people enough to want to listen to the whole record.
Very nice. And was that the first time you were working as a four piece?
Um, yeah, actually, yeah, I guess so. For that record, yeah.
Did the extra element kind of play a big part in how that album finally came to be, or the final product of that album?
Um, I think it was kind of backwards actually because we recorded it as a three piece, but I was adding like all these other guitar parts and like all these other things just because I was like, oh, this is cool for the song. And listening back, it was kind of like, oh, I think we're gonna need to add a second guitar to like kind of do all this stuff live. Because I was like, it's not gonna sound good live if we don't have all this other stuff. So, and I kind of wanted that too. I wanted a second uh whatever it was. And before the record came out, like a lot of those songs we were playing live for quite a while. We added one of our friends, and he was kind of doing more like keyboard stuff at the start. It was more for me like keyboard stuff and like harmonies and stuff like that. And that's kind of how it started. And he would also do guitar. But it was like we did a couple shows with him, and I was like, this is sick. Like this sounds way better, way bigger. And he couldn't tour. He basically had a full-time job and was like, I don't think I have like time to do all the stuff you want me to do, which was fine. So then it was like, all right, well, like now we got to find someone else. And it was hard to find someone who could do all that. So it was just, we found a guitar player basically and settled with that.
So you didn't like the idea? I'm kidding. Just trying to ruffle some feathers here.
Yeah.
Um, after that came out, did you feel got more exposure off of when that album was released finally?
Yeah. Cause it was the first release we did with a label as well. Like everything, first two releases were just like self-released. So that was the first time we released with like Stomp Records, who we're still with. And I think it was just on top of all that too, with like the first two records, it was like we did it kind of the same way where we had done Stressor with Simon. We went back, we did this one with Simon. But I think I was a lot more like nitpicky with everything and like listening back to the recordings. If there was something where I was like, oh, this could be better, like with Stressor, I probably would have just been like, ah, whatever. Like it is what it is. Whereas with this one, I was like, it needs to be perfect. Like I need everything to be like exactly the way I want it to be. So really got like dialed in with all that kind of stuff. So the record for me is just like better to listen to and like the sound is better and like made sure everything was like listening back. If anything stood out, I was like, we got to fix that. Um, but then so that on top of like releasing with the label and they had like some funding for us to like do proper music videos and stuff like that. I think when it came out, it was like quite a step up from everything else we had done.
Very nice. Um, do you feel like the subjects that were kind of influencing the previous releases were also the subjects that were influencing this one? Or did you go in a different direction just in terms of inspiration as well?
Um, I think it was probably a lot of the like similar things, but just newer experiences or whatever like I was kind of going through at the time of writing.
Cam, I really do like that answer. I think that's a good answer.
Thank you.
I think deep down that's what I was looking for, and I think that you really delivered on it, and I appreciate it. So thank you, sir. Does the melody um that you're gonna work with for a song, does that come with the kind of hashing out the instrumentation, or does it come more with when lyrics come into play? Or is it again a kind of circumstantial aspect that it just comes when it comes and it's depends?
A lot of the time as I'm writing a riff, I can like I'll have the melody in my head and I'll just kind of be like singing along to the melody, just gibberish words or whatever. Um, so a lot of the time it's written, the melody is usually written for the most part, or at least like the basic idea of it will be with the riff at the time. And like, especially like in the, like when we were jamming more and hashing it out, like me and Aurora, it would be like just doing it all. And we would usually just like phone record it and then just so we had it. And a lot of the times, like going back to the old, like very first phone demos of certain songs, it would be like the basic structure. And then you'd hear me like just kind of yelling whatever, just with that melody, just to kind of remember like what I was thinking at the time, I guess. And then from that, sometimes it would either like change or get better or whatever, or sometimes would change if lyrics came into play. The melody maybe sometimes had to shift a little depending on what the lyrics were. And then other times I would just be saying words and those words would just be incorporated into what the lyrics are. And it's almost right from just random shit I was yelling out, I guess. I don't know.
And that's how you write a hit right there. That's the
Yeah,
blueprint.
you gotta not think about it. Yeah.
Uh, was the newest release the Super Ultra Mega, was that the follow up to that one?
Mushroom. Yeah. Super mega ultra.
Super Mega Ultra. Super Mega Ultra. I said Super Ultra Mega and I didn't mean to. I
Totally wrong.
apologize to you. I apologize to the woman in Philadelphia, I believe is what you said,
Yep.
because she would also be pretty
Right.
upset with me about that. As I am upset with myself. I do apologize, and I hope that we can all get past this transgression, if you will. Um, anyways,
We'll see.
I jury's still out on that, and I understand you're rightfully upset. Um, did working on that newest, and that is it is the newest, right? I mean, because now I'm just second guessing myself entirely.
No, yeah.
That might have been the second album, and I just have it all fucked over. Don't have the title, don't have the release correct.
That is the newest one up till now. It's
Right on.
only been out for like 5 months. So still fairly fresh.
Is there do you look at an album losing its freshness with the amount of time that it's been released, or the amount of times you've played it, do you think?
Um, I think it all just depends on like if people are still caring about it or not. But like for us, we tend to tour them like for quite a bit, which probably helps. Like just because you kind of just keep throwing it in everyone's faces. And when you're on tour, it's like, oh, like I'll listen to that band and that's the newest release, so it's gonna be there. Um, but like even with the one before that, Mushroom Dust Sex, like it was out and like probably for like after like 6 months, like we were touring it at the time. And we were in my head, I was like, all right, it's been like 6 months. Like, and we had already started, like, we had already gone into the studio at that point and like recorded the first couple tracks for the new one, like only 6 months later. And in my head, I was like, we need to get the next record out and like keep the momentum going, sort of thing. But then, like, after 6 months of Mushroom being out, it kind of got like a weird second wind and like blew up on Spotify like way more. Like, it just, I don't know what happened. It just got on like a bunch more playlists or algorithms or something like that. But it just like picked up way more steam. And then, like, from that, we were like held off on like releasing anything new because that record just seemed to do well for so long. And we're like, we don't really need to like rush anything out right now, I guess.
Do you feel like it is a rush once something the newest thing is out? It's like, all right, now on to the next. Just got to jump onto the next thing.
I used to think that way, but now I'm kind of like, yeah, like it's kind of nice to like put something out and let it breathe a little and not try to, I don't know, drop too many things all at once and like crowd it or whatever. Like, just let it be, and if it does well, it does well, and if not, like, you put out the next thing. But like, I think I used to put more pressure on myself to like, all right, that record's out. Now we need to like work on the next one and like get it out really quick, sort of thing. And I don't think that way as much anymore. I think it's okay to have like a year, like 2 years in between records. There was
I
3 in between the last two, so
I think that's okay as well. I think that's
yeah.
fine.
There's so many bands that like, yeah, we'll put out like a record every year, like a couple a year, and like that's a lot. And it's a lot for like the listeners too to like take in, I think.
I think it's interesting what you said that kind of taking it from your own face and just really examining it to pushing it onto the audience. I think that's a perfect description of some. It's like, all right, I've been looking at this. This has been in my I've been around this and it's been absorbing me for so long. Let me push it off of me and like now it's everybody's.
Yeah.
Please be absorbed in it as well, at least for a bit. Especially with like a tour cycle like that for an album. It's like, all right, yeah, but you gotta support the album,
Yeah.
playing a lot of songs from the album.
Well, and that's a big part of it too, is like, yeah, from starting a record, like recording it, writing it, recording it, and then like to getting all the album art and like the track listing, that is such a long, like that is like a 2 year thing usually. So by the time the record's done and it's not out yet, it's like I've been listening to these songs for 2 years. And then by the time it comes out, it's like, do I even care anymore? But so I like to, for the last two, it's like as long as I can like listen to the record and still like kind of get like amped up about it, then I'm like, okay, that's good. Like, but if I was like after 2 years of like, and it's ready to go and I'm like listening to it, it's like, oh, this thing sucks. I'd probably like not want to put it out because like, well, it's probably not that good if I'm already feeling that way about it.
Right. Right.
Whereas
Do you
I
think
want to be able to like put it on every couple months or so and be like, fuck yeah, this is sick.
is there some times with some songs that it's like, yeah, I can only hear this so many times before it's like, okay, that is a song that we have, and I don't want to hear it again.
Yeah, that has happened, but the last two records, I don't think it's happened yet. I think I can still, if I sit down and listen, because I put like quite a bit of time into that too, where it's like the way it flows and everything, it seems to work. But I think the last two are still, I'm still stoked on every song. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, good.
The older two, like the first two, there's definitely stuff where I'm like, oh, I would change that, and oh, that sounds fucking weird, or like the tones are a little off, or whatever. But still proud of them.
Doesn't sound like it.
Definitely things I would change about them, but that like they are what they are, and that's totally fine.
Going back to the idea of the of a song that stands out or a favorite track, what was that for the most recent release?
Favorite track?
If
Um,
I mean, if you're able to answer that, or one, how about we'll just say your favorite track right now as we're talking, and that could change.
I think my favorite track, it's probably the oldest one. Like it's probably the first one that was written, but I still like it. Is Stimulation. Just for because like I still love playing that song. The crowd, it's always a point in the show where the crowd always gets really into it as well. It's always like a weird turning point in the show. And it's just like a for even before it was recorded and we were playing it, like it was people would be like singing along just because the chorus is like a chanting sort of thing. But I don't know. Yeah, there's just something about it. And like playing it's always fun. And if I like hear it still, I'm like, yeah, damn, that's a good song. That's got
Um,
everything you need in it. And it's like it's not like a typical song that I would write, like just power chords and stuff. It's got like little guitar things going on. And it's one of those songs where I listen back to it and I'm like, damn, like I don't know how I wrote that song. I don't know if I could do that again. Yeah. But I'd say that one is probably my favorite one on the new record.
Heck yeah. Um, this is it's kind of a big question because it's the last question here, but is there a song that perfectly encapsulates what the sound of the band is that if somebody hadn't heard the music and they ask you, oh, well, where should I start? What song should I start with? Is there a song that you'd be like, start from here and then, move forward with the rest of the catalog?
Hmm. I mean, you could start with Eyes, I guess. That is like weird to say because it's like the most streamed song or whatever, but it is kind of the basic idea of the band. It's just like a quick, fast punk song under 2 minutes, and there's a lot of that. Um, that's probably a good starting point for sure.
Heck yeah. Long answer. I
But
want
not limited to that as well, because I guess there's songs that are like a little more intricate and like thought out and like I don't know, maybe more difficulty in playing them and stuff like that. But
and they will go on to discover those after hearing
yeah,
that. Yeah.
if they want to like if they like that initial and they want to dig in, then yeah,
Then dig in.
dig in. And if not, that's yeah. If you
And
don't
if
like it,
not, don't mention that you're not going to do it. Just say that you will, and if you will, do it. But if not,
leave me on.
yeah, just lie. It's easy. Uh, Cam, I really appreciate you coming on here. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, man.
Um,
Thanks for having me.
but before I let you go, I got some promotion to do here. So, Wine Lips' music is streaming everywhere. Wherever people get their music, that's where they could find you, right?
Yeah.
Heck yeah. And people can find the merch and the vinyl through the Bandcamp. And again, if this is a Bandcamp Friday that this releases, spend all the money there.
Whatever you
Um,
got. Spend the rent
whatever,
money.
whatever you mortgage, whatever, car payment, your uh, your gambling money, whatever it is, spend it there. And that is it.
Groceries.
Yeah, hey, whatever you got to spend it there. That's at winelips.bandcamp.com. That's the most direct way to support the band, right?
Yeah. Yeah, through Bandcamp. That or come to a show.
Both, maybe.
Come to a show and buy the merch right from our hands.
Even if you don't live in the area that they're playing, just buy a ticket anyways. If you see it's not sold out, just buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we'll get like a percentage of that ticket.
Or at least a free drink out of it.
Yeah, hopefully.
That's fingers crossed on that. And everybody gets up to date with news and shows and tours and all that good stuff by following the band on Instagram, right? Is it the best place to stay up to date with everything?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Perfect. And
We
that's
uh
at
we we really should get a like a proper website, but we don't we don't have one.
it's It's pretty punk rock. Yeah, the Instagram's at Wine Lips Band. Um, and is there anything else we got to promote here? And yeah, please mention the label one more time, actually. That
Stomp Records,
Stomp Records. Okay,
based out
cool.
of Montreal. Also, Levitation, the Reverberation Appreciation Society.
Hmm.
They put out our records in the States as well.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. And all that good stuff will be linked below, whatever you're listening to this on. Yeah, and go support them. And Cam, I cannot thank you enough, sir. Thank you very much. I know it took a second to get this together, but we did it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna stop recording this, and I'll talk to you in a minute. All right.
sounds good.
Cool. Thank you, sir.